Welcome back to the Weekend Report. I'm Masechaba Mposwa. 99 people were raped and 11 murdered in educational premises between October 2024 and December 2024. Now, these are just some of the alarming crime statistics announced by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu on Friday. Of the 11 murders, 8 took place in schools and 3 at tertiary institutions. And of the 99 rapes, 74 happened in schools, 9 in daycare or aftercare centers, and 10 in special schools, 6 in tertiary institutions. Now, let's discuss the safety of our school premises and why these kinds of crimes still occur. Now, joining me now is Professor Atmore from the Center for ECD Development, as well as SADTU National Spokesperson Nomusa Cembi and disability rights activist Saul Molobi. Thank you all so much for joining me. Good morning to you all.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Masechaba.
Let me start with you, Nomusa. What is SADTU's stance on the current state of school safety in South Africa?
Yes, indeed, our schools are all. It is shocking that the schools, which are supposed to be safe havens for both the learners or everyone in the school, we find that such heinous crimes have taken place inside the premises. It is indeed very shocking. It shows that our schools are not safe, and schools require safety, and it requires all stakeholders in education really to play their part in ensuring that schools are safe. Government should ensure that we have the best security apparatus and security personnel in our schools, and learners as well as teachers and the staff in our schools need to play their part to ensure that the schools are safe, because some of the incidents were perpetrated by the learners themselves, some by security in the school, some by people from outsiders, some by the teachers themselves. So it means all stakeholders in education should play their part to ensure that our schools are indeed safe.
And let me come to you, Professor Eric. I mean, coming from the Center for ECD Development, what are the psychological effects of exposure to crime and violence on children's emotional and cognitive development? And what does it indicate when the child is not just the victim, but the perpetrator?
Masechaba, I want to echo what my colleague has just said. It is shocking. It is unacceptable and should not be happening. The impact and the effects are devastating. Firstly, on the victim, but then also on the family and the wider community. So we've all got an obligation to protect children, certainly in terms of the Children's Act, in terms of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have to do something. And, you know, one child raped or murdered is one child too many. And as my colleague just said, it has to be a collaborative effort between government, school authorities, community, parents. But we really need to put a stop to it. Because remember, the figures we're talking about is only for 3 months. We have to multiply that by 4 times to get the annual figures, and they then become horrific. We cannot allow it anymore.
All right, so let me come to you now on the back of what the professor has just said. As a disability rights activist, I mean, what would you say are the most critical issues facing learners, particularly with disabilities in South Africa today?
Yeah, if you look at all the charters developed, whether nationally or at continental level through the African Union and even the United Nations, they talk about protection of children. And for me, we need to go a step further to say that we also need to protect this special designated group of children with disabilities. The statistics are shocking, considering the fact that we do not have many registered early childhood development centers. And my take is that there could be many more cases out there. And with with the inclusion of early childhood development in formal basic school level, I believe that we are going to see many more shocking statistics indicating that children with disabilities who are the most vulnerable are affected the most. But also societally, we also need to look at the problems starting from home. Children are exposed to violence at home, and they go into the community, they still see violent activities continuing, and that also then goes to school. Because as my colleagues and the report also saying, it's not just children who are victims, but in some instances, you have children being the perpetrators. And for me, I would say we should start at home, then into the community, and then into the schools.
And as you've rightfully indicated, Saul, children are the most vulnerable in our community, and more so children with disabilities, many being even more vulnerable. And on that note, I mean, what specific challenges or barriers do you think that learners, particularly with disabilities, face in reporting or even seeking help for crimes committed against them?
Yeah, I grew up in a rural village, and I do visit centers for children with disabilities in rural villages. We also need, as a country, to embark on a national consciousness awareness campaign, not only during the Disability Rights Awareness Month from November 3 to December 3, but every day, where we also say to our people, children with disabilities have as much rights as normal children. And if you are a parent, you are blessed with a child with disabilities, that isn't a curse. I've seen instances where, as we're growing up, we will know that there's a child with disabilities in that particular house, but that child would never be integrated into the broader community. Now, you have children who are they're vulnerable, and this means they are also helpless because they need special care for them to be able to be integrated into the normal society, to do what every normal child is doing. So it is up to us as the community, as all the stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, educators in this early learning centers, but also beyond that, we also need to involve the churches in trying to advocate for the rights of children, and beyond that, children with disabilities, so that ultimately our children, our communities could be safe haven for them, as Nomusa indicated on earlier on.
Right, and let me come back to you, Nomusa. Saul has rightfully indicated that there is a need for what he refers to as national consciousness awareness campaigns. So does SADTU collaborate with provincial and regional authorities to address school safety concerns?
Yes, we do collaborate at a national and provincial and national and local levels with the Department of Education. The department has held several safety summits, but also as a union, we've gone further as a union. We've launched a campaign. We have a campaign which we call I'm a School Fan campaign, where we're engaging communities at local level and all stakeholders in education to say, be a fan of your school. As a fan, like you are a fan of a soccer team, you do whatever that you can to support your team. You are always behind your team. So we are saying to communities, you know, it's high time that schools become part of communities. If you are a member of a community, engage in whatever is happening in school. Do your best to ensure that your school is safe, your school engage, support your schools in whatever manner you can. You do not need to have money to support your school, but you can go to your school, engage with the principal of your school to say, what is it that I can do? If you see a learner in a community, you see a learner perhaps during daytime wandering around wearing a uniform of a local school, as a fan of your school, you engage that learner to say, why are you here? Go to school, protect, as a community member, protect that learner, make sure that that learner is at school. Go to the principal, find out what is it that you can do to assist the school so that the school can be safe, so that a proper education can take place in the school. Schools are part of communities. Therefore, communities should be part and parcel, or should do their best to assist in ensuring not safety, in ensuring that proper learning takes place in the school.
Now, as we know, Nomusa, we're dealing with quite a dynamic issue in the sense that the perpetrators are sometimes the children, as we've mentioned, the perpetrators are sometimes the school principals. Does SADTU have any measures in place to ensure that teachers are not engaging in inappropriate behavior with students? And if so, how are such incidents reported or addressed?
We are totally engaged against such teachers behaving in such a manner. A teacher is supposed to be a parent, plays a local parent's role. So it cannot be that a parent can engage in such activities with the learner. So we always say the law should take its place. The teacher has got a code of conduct that he needs to abide by. As a professional, he's got a code of conduct he needs to abide by. It is totally a no-no for a teacher to engage in such. So we do engage with the South African Council for Educators. We do engage with the Education Labor Relations Council on these matters. And the Education Labor Relations Council has made it even easier for these cases to be reported, because you find that before, a learner would report an incident, and then you'll find that the learner will have to go and make a case or give evidence in the South African Council for Educators, and also make a case to the Department of Education and also to the Education Labor Relations Council if perhaps the teacher takes the matter up. We have the ALRC, Education Labor Relations Council, has made it easier to say it is quite traumatic for a learner to be going through all these stages. So for things to be made easier, it is best that only one process can take place where the learner can give her evidence on the matter. So it used to be like 3 processes, but now it is one, so that the learners cannot be re-traumatized as they have to relate this matter now and again. We try our best to make sure that, we encourage that the learners should come up and talk about this. Yes, we stand for teachers. We are there as a union for teachers, but also we also hold our teachers accountable to adhering to the professional standards.
As we are talking about measures that need to be in place, let's stay here for a second. I'd like to bring you in here, Saul, as a disability rights activist. I mean, how accessible or even how effective would you say the justice system is when it comes to learners with disabilities who've been victims of rape or any kind of crime?
Yeah, if you visit some police stations, you will see some notices indicating that there's a specialized unit to deal with issues of gender-based violence. And my assumption is that that particular unit will also be looking at issues affecting or violence perpetrated against children and children with disabilities. But the most important thing for me is that as parents, as community members and community leaders, and then in the school environment, the principal and the teachers, it is our responsibility to protect these learners. Now, my suspicion is that there are many cases of abuse of children with disabilities that are not reported. And simply because one, you look at how many police stations do we have in a radius of 100 kilometers in the country. It's very, very little. There are many rural areas where we do not have access to the police system through the existence of a police station that can serve as many areas as possible. I've also learned of some instances where if you were to call police, the first question is, has someone died? And the minute you say, no, nobody has died, to them it is no longer a priority. And for me, this may impact very negatively, especially in the community of children with disabilities. So it takes guts from us as parents, guts from us as neighbors. If you realize that your neighbor is mistreating their child with disabilities, it is up to us to take up that matter. In an instance where there is no a police station, perhaps the best one could do is to start with the ward committee member. And in some instances, even though we don't have clinics and police stations in each and every village, but please go to a nearby clinic. There could be social workers there, and you report the case. And the social workers and the clinic are legally bound to report such cases to the police. That intervention could help in lessening the cases of abuse against learners with children with disabilities.
You make a very valid point, Saul, about the collaborative effort that is required. But if you can just, from your perspective, how do you think that we can actually address some potential ways to target the root causes of rapes and violent crimes in schools particularly?
We are already making an effort, but unfortunately, as I indicated earlier on, we put much effort only during the Disability Rights Awareness Month from November to December. And with me, I would say every day should be a day for us to inculcate the message that children, especially children with disabilities, have to be protected at all material times. We need to run workshops and community called community awareness meetings where we discuss these issues openly. In rural areas, it's not very often that issues affecting people with disabilities in general could be discussed. As I indicated earlier on, there are so many myths built around disabilities in our communities. Now, government has to partner with all the stakeholders to ensure that this awareness is inculcated, not only in schools or in the workplaces, but also in our homes and communities.
All right. I'd like to thank you all so much for your time. That was Saul Molobi, a disability activist, disability rights activist, as well as Professor Eric Atmore from the Center for ECD Development, as well as Nomusa Cembi, SADTU national spokesperson.